Hi there, Linda Goodall here. This is part 2 of a two-part video, and in the last video I showed you how to take 3 designs from the Delicate Roses collection and customize them using Embroidery Essentials to build a new design, which we then stitched on this t-shirt. And in this video we're actually going to make the dress. So this dress was made a couple years ago. This is probably about a size 3 little girl's t-shirt, and I did not take step-by-step pictures because it takes 10 times as long to make anything when you have to do that. So this is not going to be an action video. This will just be some step-by-steps. The dress is really easy, and if you have just basic sewing skills, you'll be able to make one from this video. So let's get started. What you'll need? Well, you'll need a t-shirt, and we embellished ours in the previous video, but you do not have to be an embroiderer to do this. You can use any t-shirt. You'll need some fabric for the flounces. I used about 1/4 yard lengths for the 3 flounces you see here, and that's a full width. That's not a fat quarter. And you'll need basic sewing supplies. So here's how we're going to make it. We'll start by making the skirt flounces. So you're going to decide on the placement on your t-shirt, how long you want those flounces to be, and add about 2.5 inches or so. Then you're going to stitch the short ends together, right sides together, which is a normal seam allowance, to form a circle. You probably want to cut off those selvages first. So trim those off. Doesn't make any difference if you lose an inch. It's not a big deal. These are gathered on there. And then we're going to finish the hem edge. I'll show you how to do that. We'll cut it to size, allowing for a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the top. Then we'll slice the t-shirt up, and then we'll assemble the dress by gathering each of the skirts and layer them between the t-shirt pieces and stitching the third one onto the bottom. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So here's the Scalloped Hem How-To. And I can tell you that if you do the scalloped hem, it will take you a long time because this is the most time-consuming part of the whole project. And it's not stitching the scallops, it's turning those little boogers inside out and getting them all curved. So if you haven't already stitched your flounces, your skirt panels, into a complete circle, do that now. So right sides together, and I used to use a 1/4 inch seam after I trimmed off those selvages. Then we're going to clean finish the hem. And what I do mean by that is you're going to just turn it under a 1/4 inch on the raw edge and press and then straight stitch to keep it in place. Then to do these scallops, which they take a long time, it's not the stitching, it's the turning right side out that takes a long time. So you'll turn it up about 1.5 inches to the front, right sides together that is. Then you're going to use a built-in stitch on your sewing machine. I used a straight stitch scallop. You can kind of see what it looks like down there at the bottom. Play around with it so that you can figure out how deep the curve is, how long the curve is, and do shorten the stitches slightly. That'll make the curves better, and it'll also help if you snip a little too close when you're trimming. So the next step is, after you stitch all the way around on those curves, you're going to trim the seam allowance off to 1/4 inch. And I started by clipping into all the curve points, which you can see in that photograph. See how on the right they're kind of squared off, and on the left they're curved? So on the right side there, I haven't curved those stitches yet. I've just clipped into the high point, the corner, and don't clip into the stitches, just clip right up to it. Then you're going to do a little notching, you're going to do a little trimming, and then this is the time-consuming part. I think if I had not stitched all of these and cut them all first, if I had done one at a time, I might not have done the other 2 as scallops because this took a really long time. So you're going to have to push out all those little curves. And what I found was if you have some kind of curve tool, like this is the curved end of the surgical blade seam ripper, you might want to put something over the surgical blade so you don't stab yourself. That pushes out those curves real nicely. And then if you have one of those little small applique tacking irons, you can kind of smooth and curve and press as you go, and that worked really well. Press well when you're done. And if your hem is not too deep, it should stay up on its own. I don't know that I actually finished this, or you could just finish it with fusible tape. So then after that's done, you're going to rotary cut these across that whole flounce so that they're all straight, and do allow about 1/2 inch for allowance. Then we're going to prepare a t-shirt. So you're just going to kind of slice it up, and you can see I got real creative here. I just used the width of my ruler. I like to use a rotary blade and a ruler for these kind of things because it gets it really straight and you can see if you're on target or not. I did trim off the bottom hem because it's kind of thick, so I just threw that part away. So you're going to have one flounce that goes between the top and the middle, another one that goes between the middle and the bottom, and then another one that gets added right to the bottom. So then you're going to gather up those flounces. So what I did was I just folded it in half and then folded it in half again, and took my scissors and clipped a little notch where I could match it up to the side seams on the t-shirt and the front and back center. And then you got to gather it up. Now my favorite method, I saw this on Sewing with Nancy many years ago. You bring up a bobbin thread at your sewing machine and you pull it out to a couple inches longer than whatever you're gathering to, and then you're going to use a narrow zigzag and just zigzag over that center thread that you're holding, and then you can just kind of gather as you stitch. And it's real easy to distribute the gathers this way, much better than that old double thread with a basting stitch length, and it seldom breaks, so it works really well. Then you'll just stitch them on there. So I worked from the top to the bottom. I applied the top flounce to the top of the t-shirt, and then I added the bottom or the middle panel. And you can stitch the pieces together, the sandwich together if you want to. I did it one at a time so that I could see what I was doing with all that gathers. And that's pretty much it. You just stitch it together and it's done. So this is a real easy project. If you're a brand new sewer, you might need a little more help than that, but it really is a pretty basic project, and it can be done really quickly if you skip those little scallop things. So if you're not doing the embroidery, you could probably make one of these in, I'm sure, less than 2 hours if you just did a straight stitch hem on the bottom. Here's some fun ideas that you might want to try. Get your child to help you pick out the fabrics, the shirt, the colors, the designs. This is a great thing to do with your daughter or your granddaughter or your niece or whoever, even the neighborhood kids, to help them, design their own garment. And it's really easy. You're probably going to have to do all the sewing, but they'll feel really involved because they've helped pick out the colors. Maybe they've helped pick out the fabrics. If you're doing embroidery, let them pick the thread colors. Maybe let them pick the designs. And if you're working with a kid, don't put their names on that t-shirt. A monogram is much safer because you do not want strangers knowing the kid's name. So I hope you'll give this a try, and I'd love to see what you do, so send me a picture. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again.